The storm outside howled against the little wooden cabin tucked on the edge of a quiet Vermont town. Snow fell so thick it seemed the world had been swallowed in white. Inside, Daniel pulled a blanket tighter around his 8-year-old daughter Lily, who had fallen asleep on the couch. The single dad had learned to carry the weight of everything alone since his wife passed away 3 years earlier. He worked long shifts at the hardware store, made simple meals, kept the small home running, and did his best to give Lily a childhood filled with love even if it wasn't filled with luxuries. Tonight, though, something was about to change. A loud knock rattled the door. Out here, in the middle of a blizzard, no one knocked at night. Daniel froze, then opened the door. A woman stood there, soaked in snow, her coat heavy, her face pale. Her voice shook as she begged for shelter. Without hesitation, Daniel pulled her inside, lit the fire, and wrapped her in a blanket. She thanked him in a whisper, her eyes drifting toward Lily who slept peacefully. He told her simply that he would hope someone else would do the same if it were his daughter stranded in the storm. Those words seemed to weigh on her more than he realized. She gave her name only as Claire. She spoke little that first night, keeping close to the fire. By morning, the storm had sealed the town in snow. Roads were blocked, power flickered, but inside the cabin there was warmth. Lily woke curious about the stranger. Claire knelt, smiling, and soon she and the little girl were outside, bundled against the cold, shaping snow into a laughing snowman. Daniel watched through the frosted window. Something about the woman seemed different. She carried herself with a grace that didn't quite fit a stranded traveler, but she was kind, and Lily adored her. At dinner that night, in the modest kitchen, Claire looked around the chipped paint, the worn table, the family photos hanging on the wall. She said softly that he had made this house a home. Daniel smiled, saying children didn't need much, only love and stability. She nodded, quiet, almost pained, as if the truth of it stirred something long buried inside her. What Daniel didn't know was that Claire was Claire Whitmore, one of the most powerful CEOs in America, a billionaire at the head of a global company. She had fled endless board meetings and suffocating responsibility, driving through the storm, when her car had spun out. For days in Daniel's cabin she lived simply, without titles or wealth. She read Lily bedtime stories, helped cook oatmeal, sat by the fire at night, listening instead of commanding. For the first time in years, she was not being watched, judged, or needed for her money. She was just Claire. One evening, after Lily was asleep, Daniel told her she seemed like someone who didn't belong in such a small place. She asked if it mattered. He told her everyone belonged somewhere, maybe she just hadn't found it yet. The sincerity in his words caught her heart. She realized she had spent years building empires but had never built a home. When the snow finally cleared, Claire said goodbye, promising Lily she would visit again. Daniel only thanked her, not asking for more. A week later, he returned home from work to find a black luxury car outside his cabin and men in suits at his door. Inside, Lily laughed as Claire handed her a gift. Then he heard the men call her Ms. Whitmore. His heart dropped. The stranger he had sheltered was the billionaire splashed across newspapers, the woman he had seen on television. Claire saw the shock in his face and quickly explained. She hadn't told him because she wanted to be seen as a person, not a fortune. Daniel kept his distance, hurt, unsure if any of it had been real. That night, she joined him on the porch where snow glittered under the moonlight. She admitted that staying in his cabin had reminded her of what truly mattered. She had wealth and power, but none of it compared to the love and warmth she felt there. He told her their worlds were too different. She stepped closer, saying kindness did not care about worlds, and that with him she had felt more at home than anywhere. For the first time since his wife's passing, Daniel allowed himself to imagine a future that wasn't lonely. Claire began returning often, not with headlines or extravagance but with simple acts that meant everything. Helping Lily with homework, kneading bread with Daniel in the kitchen, sitting together at sunset on the porch as the fields lay covered in snow. To the outside world she was still the powerful CEO, but in that cabin she was only Claire, and she was loved. Daniel realized that opening his door that snowy night hadn't just saved a stranger. It had changed his life. It reminded him that sometimes the greatest fortunes are not measured in money, but in the way love and kindness find us when we least expect it.